well. The joy that I experienced about half an hour ago when the Steelers injury report dropped, not for the players listed on it, obviously, but for the sheer factor of being able to get it early so we could have it for the feed, for news purposes, and for this show. What an absolute glorious feeling on that front, Chris.
Happy Football Friday, everyone.
Happy Football Friday indeed. This is, of course, the Southside Beat, as we are every Monday through Friday, 3 to 3:30-ish Eastern. I'm going to start saying ish at the end of that one. Here on DK Pittsburgh Sports on YouTube, live streaming, and then, of course, later where podcasts are found. He is Chris Halicke. I am Corey Crisan. I am in a well-lit, obviously high-quality environment today.
High-quality Corey's back.
Much less like the last 2 days. And, Chris, we're going to open the show right with news. This is, some ways, a news show, as much as it is, us wanting to give our opinions and our thoughts about the Steelers. The two big things. Kenny Pickett is in, which was pretty indicative given, he was limited Wednesday with the knee injury, bumped up to full Thursday. He practiced in full on Friday and does not carry an injury designation. Alex Highsmith, who popped on Thursday's injury report as a DNP, and we were all like, whoa, what the hell, As it turns out, he injured his groin at the end of Wednesday's practice, and that's what kept him out Thursday as a precaution. He practiced in a limited fashion on Friday and is now listed as questionable for Sunday. And 5 Steelers have been ruled out for Sunday. That's Presley Harvin. That's Presley Harvin with the hamstring. Dan Moore, we knew that with the knee. James Daniels with the groin. This is the second game he'll miss in a row. Pat Freiermuth with the hamstring. We had an indication from Tomlin on Tuesday that Freiermuth would be up. Yeah. And DeMarvin Leal is still in the concussion protocol. Now, Leal practiced in a limited fashion on Thursday. He did not practice on Wednesday, so he was essentially upgraded. But then he did not practice on Friday. So Leal being held out
could mean symptoms are still lingering. Could mean a number of different things. The protocol is pretty specific. So obviously, if he was only able to be limited once and it was in the middle of the week, or in the middle of those 3 practice days, then it's not looking good. So
and the final piece that kind of popped today, Najee Harris limited on Friday with the hamstring issue, but does not carry an injury designation into Sunday. So a quick roundup. Kenny Pickett is in. Alex Highsmith is questionable. 5 Steelers are out. Presley Harvin, Dan Moore, James Daniels, Pat Freiermuth, and DeMarvin Leal.
Yep. And the Najee thing popping up, obviously is something to watch, especially in a game against the Ravens. The Steelers are going to try to establish the run. They always do. But especially against the Ravens, it's just part of that, it's part of the physical battle that is always Steelers and Ravens. And if your starting running back is a little banged up, even if it's just a little tiny hamstring thing, maybe that's why you do. As soon as one little thing happened, just pull him out. He's limited, no big deal. Let it rest Saturday, go into Sunday with him as healthy as he can be. So definitely something to watch during warmups on Sunday morning for sure.
And then Cole Holcomb and Chuks Okorafor, they practiced in full Thursday and Friday. They were limited Wednesday. So Holcomb with the back, Chuks with an elbow. So those two are going to be good to go for Sunday. Kenny obviously being in, we've talked about the quarterbacks and about Pickett and his health. And even a less than 100% Pickett, do you play him right before bye? There's, of course, going to be discourse around that. And I'm sure on Sunday after the game, all of the hindsighters will come out and say, yes, that was a good idea. No, that was not a good idea, but we're going to find out on Sunday. The big one right now is Alex Highsmith, Chris. And right now on DKPittsburghSports.com, I was able to churn out a story quick enough before this show started about Alex Highsmith and his, he says he's going to be able to play Sunday. He says he'll be good to go. I would assume that he's being listed questionable today, and they're going to test him out tomorrow and pregame as to whether or not he will play. And when you're facing the Ravens, which have a top 5 rushing attack in the NFL, this is the 3rd time in the span of 5 games that the Steelers are going to face a top 5 rushing offense in the NFL.
You need all the help you can get
after facing the 49ers and the Browns. So yes, you need all the help you can get. And there's some guy back there named Lamar Jackson, who's a former MVP. He's rushed for just under 44 yards per game in his career against the Steelers. So having Highsmith on the field obviously is a huge deal, but Marcus Golden, Nick Herbig, Golden obviously has done well with filling in, and Herbig, let's be honest, ever since that red hot preseason that he had, he's been kind of quiet. He's been kind of quiet. He only played in 4 snaps on Sunday, and I asked Terrell Austin about that on Thursday. You can read that on the site right now. But Highsmith is the big one, Chris. If he can't play or if he's fairly limited, that's just more trouble for a Steelers defense that is having trouble with stopping the run.
Yeah, I mean, they listen, no matter how it happens, no matter who's in there, obviously you want to see, other guys contribute. And, if Alex Highsmith is active, with the injuries, there's a possibility that his workload gets, depleted just a little bit, or I would say depleted, but limited just a little bit. And so that does pave the way for guys such as, Marcus Golden and Nick Herbig to come in and to make a splash. Somebody needs to do something because this run defense has been absolutely terrible. It's looked way more like the 2021 version of the Steelers than the 2022 version. And this is with a healthy TJ Watt. I understand Cam Hayward's not in the middle, but you have some guys, specifically Keanu Benton, who's playing well in the middle, but they're not playing well collectively. And I think that's the big problem. And so obviously you want to have all the guys you can have in there. But you want to be able to limit the drop off whenever starters have to come off. When TJ Watt has to come off, you want to make sure that, Marcus Golden or Nick Herbig is staying productive. You want, when Alex Highsmith comes off the field, you want to make sure those two guys are staying productive. It's not been, that's not been clear so far, but it's only 4 games into the season. There's still a long way to go. Nick Herbig's a young player. He was a 4th round pick for a reason. 5th round pick, 4th round. I can't remember. 4th round. Yeah.
Okay. Real quick, Chris, we have a little more breaking news. This is amazing for a Football Friday. Ravens injury report just dropped.
Nice.
This is important. Okay. So first off, linebacker Adafi Owe and cornerback Daryl Worley are both out. With respective ankle and shoulder issues. But here's the big one. 5 Ravens are currently listed questionable. Odell Beckham, Justice Hill, Marlon Humphrey, Keaton Mitchell, the running back, and Ronnie Stanley, the offensive tackle, are all listed questionable. Morgan Moses, the other offensive tackle, is listed as doubtful for the game. So the Ravens could be without a couple of big pieces on the offensive line. Obviously, Odell Beckham and Marlon Humphrey are impact players on the offense or defense. Let's do our famous stall tactic where you can elaborate on this, and I will add this to our feed on DKPittsburghSports.com.
Well, the thing with Marlon Humphrey is obviously that's a huge piece of the Ravens defense. When we're talking about the main pieces of their defense, Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen in the middle are right there, but Marlon Humphrey's an all-pro cornerback. If the Ravens have him, that's a big thing. And it's especially worth noting that he hasn't played at all this season. He's been out with this injury. And so, it's, if he's there and this is his first game that he plays this season, that's a huge addition. And especially against the Steelers offense, that is, we've gone over plenty of how bad the offense has been, especially, in the passing game. So if Marlon Humphrey is there, that's just going to make the Ravens even stronger. Ronnie Stanley possibly being there is obviously going to be a big boost on their offensive line, even though their lines looked pretty good, both in pass protection and in the running game. The Ravens are the big thing to take away from their injury report, honestly, is and Spice Creation says that they've been winning without Humphrey. They've been winning dealing with a lot of injuries. Odell Beckham, Rashad Bateman, Ronnie Stanley, Marlon Humphrey. They've been without some significant players. They're still finding a way to win games. They're still 3-1. Their one loss was in overtime in a pretty poorly played game. They still, had a chance to win. It took a fifth quarter in order to get that done. This is still a really good football team, and they're finding a way to play really well while there are injuries. So, Robert Cotting asks, does Leal still have a concussion? Well, he's, as we said earlier in the show, he didn't practice Wednesday. He was limited Thursday, and then he didn't practice again today, and has been ruled out. So he was announced to have a concussion, and so if he's still in the protocol, then it's safe to assume that he still has a concussion. At the very least, he is still dealing with symptoms. And so if he's dealing with symptoms, he stays in the protocol. You have to pass different stages of the protocol in order to completely get out of it. So he's still in it. So yeah, that's the big thing.
So a lot of questions have come up in the feed here on the live stream about groin and hamstring injuries. And if you look at both injury reports, they're really loaded with these lower body injuries. And of course, Cam Hayward was injured week 1 with a groin injury, had to have surgery for it. Alex Highsmith tweaked the groin. Freiermuth, Deontay Johnson with hamstrings. This is a trend in some cases. And Chris, I think part of it has to do with these rules about hitting players high and targeting and all this other stuff. And then another part of it has to deal with just general torque and wear and tear when you're playing on these different field surfaces every week. Now, playing on natural grass, the studies say, supposedly is safer than playing on turf is. But, and I'm not an agrarian by any means. I'm not going to pretend that, I know things about, sod and about softness and about firmness and all that stuff. But I do find that interesting that there is a really high number of these groin and hamstring and leg injuries that are popping up. And of course, that goes with the Achilles and the ACLs and all the non-contact stuff that you've seen lately.
Yeah, I think it's, I think some teams, tend to deal with it, in waves. I think one thing that we're kind of noticing is that this team stayed relatively healthy last year. They didn't really deal with it. I mean, the entire offensive line started all 17 games. Obviously, TJ Watt missed 7 games. That was a huge one. But outside of that, I mean, when you look at everybody else who was able to play, they were pretty much there. And now we've already seen James Daniels be out for 2 games. So it took until the 4th game of the season to see the second starting 5 for an offensive line, that the Steelers were preparing for stuff like that. So I think they were a little lucky last year when it came to the amount of injuries. And so I think this year, when you're seeing the amount of injuries that the Steelers are dealing with, it looks like a lot more, but really this is kind of nothing about this has really been like, man, they are just being absolutely hit hard with injuries. This is pretty much par for the course when it comes to an NFL season. Guys deal with hamstrings, they deal with groins, they deal with just random tightness in certain things, and it's up to the coaches to make sure that to manage their workload so that they protect them. Whether that means okay, we gotta kind of protect them in the long term, so maybe we'll take a little easy with them, or maybe they're healthy enough to play as long as their workload is kind of what the Steelers dealt with Larry Ogunjobi last year. They didn't do a lot of practicing so that he could stay on the field on Sundays. Mm-hmm. So
managing load management, right? If you're a basketball fan, that's the load management that everybody hates to see, except the difference is in the NBA, they do it in the games. And that really does ruffle some feathers in terms of like, you want to buy a ticket to see LeBron play, but he's just not, he's not playing. Like that would ruffle me too. But at least in the NFL sense, you can do that in the practice. I did see somebody ask about Larry O. Larry O's been practicing all week.
Yeah.
He has not been on the injury report.
He wasn't even on the injury report. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike,
go ahead.
Sorry, as Mike brings up the point, it's because they don't practice in pads. And I think there is a prevailing theory, I don't know how, how much this actually, resonates with fans or with people who actually work in football. But, that the whole, they're, a lot softer nowadays. They don't hit as hard and everything like that. And that is actually kind of counterproductive to how players are properly conditioned. It's kind of like back in the day, when I kind of default back to baseball, pitchers are getting injured so much this year, nowadays needing Tommy John surgery, stuff like that. And then you look back in the day, Nolan, like the 70s and 80s, Nolan Ryan's day, stuff like that. Pitchers were, throwing 300 innings a season. It's like, how come they were able to do it back then and they don't do it now? It's because, how, things are treated differently. So, Damon Brown, brings up, then the other counterpoint to that, you think we went too hard in camp. I honestly, I can't pretend to be an expert on this. Like, honestly, I wish I knew more about it. You could talk about, okay, well, if you're not conditioned to do more, then you're not going to be able to do more. And so when you try to do more, your body's not ready for it. But then if you go too far in the other direction and you do too much, you can then obviously get injured. So kind of like what Tomlin did to the Steelers in his first season as head coach in 2007. He ran them ragged in camp, and by the time the season came to an, they lost in the wild card round to the Jaguars at home, and by the time that game rolled around, they were dead tired. They were done. They were already checked out. Like this, we don't have anything left in the tank. And Tomlin learned his lesson. And then they went on to win the Super Bowl the next year. So
look at DeMond stealing our thunder. Look at DeMond stealing our thunder. We're talking about the injury report, man. We're talking about the injury report. If you just felt your phone vibrate or about to feel your phone vibrate, that is the notification coming through on your DK Pittsburgh Sports app. And as a reminder, you could sign up for those notifications for free on our free-to-download app. All you have to do is search DK Pittsburgh Sports in your Apple App Store or Google Play Store, download it, find your favorite teams in your settings, turn on those notifications, and anytime an injury report drops or Alex Highsmith says he'll play or Patrick Peterson calls Zay Flowers a munchkin, we will push that alert to you. No question. And obviously that goes for Penguins and Pirates, but I will plug, of course, the Steelers content on our Steelers show. Now, Chris, Lamar Jackson, obviously a former MVP. There it is, the notification. See, look, I'm telling you guys, it's right there for you. Lamar Jackson, obviously. Now, I think it's interesting that in 5 seasons, he's only faced the Steelers 5 times. And, of course, Jackson has been plagued with injuries at several junctions of his career.
As Joe Yenzer points out here.
Yes. Joe Yenzer says it won't be long before Lamar Jackson is injured. The second half of the season will do him in. So Lamar has played in 5 games against the Steelers in his career, but he has played against the Bengals 7 times and the Browns 10 times. So, in fact, the Steelers have gotten, you could call it lucky, with avoiding Lamar Jackson as far as half the times is concerned when it comes to facing
I don't know about that. They've done really well against Lamar Jackson.
The point is that a former league MVP, has not been available for half of the games that he could have played against the Steelers. But this is not to say that Lamar Jackson is going to be neutered in any kind of way on Sunday. This is still going to be the same Lamar Jackson.
If anything, he's more. Matthew McKinney points out he's 1-2. He's actually 2-3. He's 2-3 against the Steelers. He has a passer rating of 67.4 against the Steelers, which is the worst against any team he's ever faced. The Steelers, I mean, maybe it's a large enough sample size. I don't know, but based off of just that, the Steelers have his number. Now, that doesn't mean that you just go into the stadium and you're like, all right, we got his number, no big deal. Like, no, you still do have to prepare for possibly 2019 Lamar Jackson showing up and, shredding you for 200 yards on the ground and 180 through the air with 5 total touchdowns. You just have to know that that's an absolute possibility. And especially when you look at the tape and the way Lamar Jackson's played this year, he's looked really, really comfortable in this new offense. It's not drastically different, so he still gets to be himself. But, man, he is looking really comfortable, especially throwing the football. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I don't know. I mean, something's got to give. I'll put it that way, because Lamar Jackson so far to this point has played terrible against the Steelers. The Steelers are playing terrible right now. Something's got to give. I mean, are the chances for both to play terrible Sunday, I'm sure that's, possible, but something's got to give. Somebody's going to end up on top of this game. Somebody.
Steeler Nation for life. Whoever said JPJ can't tackle, I said that yesterday. And I'm not saying he can't tackle.
Watch the tape in Houston.
Yeah. I'm not saying he can't tackle. I'm saying he's really struggling with it. And this is nothing new. He has struggled with tackling since he got to Latrobe. This is an issue for Joey Porter Jr. And look, JPJ is far from a polished prospect. I understand that. And I also understand that he probably should be playing and getting more than 10 snaps a game by this rate. But there is a method to the Steelers' madness sometimes. And this is certainly the case. Chris, in talking about Lamar Jackson and talking about Joey Porter Jr. and talking about tackling and everything, this secondary has to deal with a kid named Zay Flowers. And yes, Patrick Peterson can joke all he wants and call Zay Flowers a munchkin and everything. But Tank Dell was a receiver they faced last week when they played Houston. And these rookie wide receivers, it's kind of fascinating to me, because if you're not built like Calvin Johnson, you might as well be built like Calvin Austin, meaning that these receivers are tending to be a little smaller. They play in the slot. They run these jet sweeps. You can put them in the backfield, in the slot, on the outside, whenever it needs to be. And Terrell Austin talked about it yesterday, and Patrick Peterson talked about it today, about how these rookie receivers and these younger guys are just being used in different ways than just downfield threats. And Zay Flowers certainly appeals to that.
Brett Haynes brings up, you're correct about JPJ, but would he be a good speed option to stay with Flowers? Like, listen, this was the big thing whenever I was at the combine and I was talking to people in the Steelers organization. And the main thing that I got for what they're looking for in a cornerback in the draft, the main thing, obviously their ability to tackle was a huge point. But ability to run with receivers was the key thing that they were looking for. Now, obviously, they didn't take a cornerback in the first round. There were a couple of cornerbacks there that they could have taken, either trading up to 14, or if they would have stood pat at 17, that they could have taken that would have fit that mold. They didn't. Mm-hmm. So, like Deontay Banks is a good example of that, but they didn't. And at 32, they took Joey Porter Jr. Now, Joey Porter Jr. is not known primarily for running with receivers. He's known for being very physical press cornerback, can help bump off the line of scrimmage. So maybe he could throw off the timing and everything like that. But in terms of the ability to run with a Zay Flowers, with a Tyreek Hill, with one of those really speedster receivers, that I think is one area where we're really going to get a test to see just what Joey Porter Jr. is actually made of. Mm-hmm. I think this might be a good week to see that. And I don't want to go this to this extent.
Oh yeah, let's not go that far.
I don't want to go to this extent where JPJ is going to end up like a bust like Devin Bush or anything like that. I don't think that. I think he definitely has the tools to be a good, really, really good NFL cornerback. He absolutely does. And in coverage, he has looked like good more often than not. In coverage, it's been small sample sizes, and I think the Steelers are doing that on purpose. They're not trying to throw him out there and say, figure it out. They're trying to coach him up. They're trying to get him prepared by easing him in more and more and more every single week. And so obviously football situations dictate his usage. Mm-hmm. So I'm not ready to go to that and say, oh, well, he might be this. It's 4 games into his career right now. There's still a lot left. I mean, he definitely has things where he's areas where he's looked good. There are definitely things to clean up. This may be one of the reasons why he wasn't taken in the first round. This might be one of the reasons.
Well, also, Christian Gonzalez is out for the season now, but that's besides the point. Yeah. Devin Witherspoon, both of those guys have played really well. So if Porter's third in that class, then that's not a bad mantle to take right now. Somebody asked about Corey Trice. Where is it? Jordan did. I have it on the screen. I should look. Jordan asked about Corey Trice. Said Corey Trice would come in handy right now. Here's a little just from me walking around the south side. He's off of crutches right now. So positive news regarding Corey Trice's ACL recovery. We'll take one more question, and we'll take it from AJ Dub before we go on to some picks here. And in the meantime, while we're answering AJ's question, those that are listening live, please drop your picks in the chat. We'll pop them on the screen as they come along. AJ asks, what will you guys be looking for specifically from 77 being Broderick Jones on Sunday? Are the first few drives high stakes for him? I'm looking for keeping Kenny Pickett clean, right? Like whatever that takes to keep Kenny Pickett clean. Yeah. And look, Chris, you watched the tape from the 4th and 1. It wasn't really Broderick Jones's doing that Kenny Pickett, rolled the wrong way and threw the ball the wrong way and did everything backwards on that play that led to him getting hurt. Like Broderick Jones kept him clean enough there as an example. Mm-hmm. As long as Broderick Jones, and it depends on what the Ravens are going to do, obviously schematically, I think Broderick Jones has a really nice opportunity here. And I'm not saying the Ravens have the best pass rush in football by any means, but they're not any slouches either. So I think Jones, it's a tough matchup. It's never an easy matchup to play your first, career start against the Ravens. No. But I think Jones has a pretty decent opportunity here at some success.
Yeah, I obviously the big thing, and Broderick Jones right now is a more polished run blocker right now than he is in pass protection. And so that plays into, okay, the Steelers began to show some signs of life with that running game last week, especially in the second half. You started to see flashes of being like, okay, Najee's running the way that we saw him run last year. The offensive line was giving him some holes finally. Okay, now it's starting to look good. And that kind of goes into why the title of this episode is Any Chance the Steelers actually show up. Like, are they able to build off of that? Are they able to go into the stadium, impose their will on the Ravens and be like, you know what, we're running the football. It doesn't mean they have to average 5 yards a carry, but are they able to, run on first down, make it 2nd and 6? Are they able to run on 2nd and 7 and make it 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 3, 3rd and short, something like that? When they do run the football, are they setting themselves up better for the next down instead of, losing yards or producing absolutely nothing? That is what the run game needs to do. It needs to control the clock. It needs to help keep the offense in rhythm. That's why they need to get set up. And when it comes to Broderick Jones being a part of that, he's a good run blocker. As of right now, he looked good against the Texans. He sealed off his edges when he needed to. Obviously, you want to help keep Kenny Pickett, you want to keep his jersey clean, but I think more than anything, if there's a way to get him going and really to get the offense as a whole going, it's run the football.
Picks time, Chris. You first.
Yee! Oh boy, picks. All right, you guys send in your picks too. We'll put as many as we can on the screen.
Oh, we're doing it right now.
So like I said, something's got to give when it comes to this. Lamar Jackson sucks against the Steelers, and the Steelers suck right now.
Irresistible force, a movable object for my wrestling fans. Somebody put it in the
chat.
It
would be like the exact opposite. It would be like, what's gonna win, a limp noodle, or I don't know. I can't even think of anything funny about it. It's something's got to give when it comes to that, because I would like to say Lamar Jackson's gonna ball out because the Steelers defense looks terrible, but then the Steelers could very well figure this out. They just seem to because there have been times where we've gone in and into a game and it looks like Lamar Jackson's going to go off and then he sucks again. It's just, I don't know.
1 p.m. AFC North ball.
It's tough.
Take that into account. Here's a better prediction for you. How soon into the game will the Fire Canada chance begin? First in completion, over under.
Over. I'm not going to say. I will say the first 3 and out.
Okay. If you want to give me
3 and out,
if you want me to give a score pick,
yeah, I'll give a score pick after you. But I will go on that. I will say the Fire Canada chance start at the first 3 and out, especially if the Steelers get the ball first and they go 3 and out. It will already start. If
the Ravens were smart, and I know they are,
they'll give the ball to the Steelers,
and they win the coin 100%. Toss. They defer. Absolutely,
100%.
Okay. This is AFC North ball. It's a 1 p.m. Like, if it's a 1 p.m. or an 8 p.m., it's guaranteed to be the over-under total is going to be guaranteed to be less than 25. That's just how this works. With that said, I'm going to say Ravens 17, Steelers 10 for a total of 27. I think the Ravens win this game. I think it's a one-score game, however. Again, that irresistible force, immovable object quotient of the whole thing. It's so hard right now. I feel like after every Steelers loss, I say this, like, it's so hard to pick, like, the Steelers to come on top in a game against the Ravens where Kenny Pickett's knee is sore, where they're missing 2 out of their 5 starting offensive linemen, where they could be missing Alex Highsmith unless he's hurt. They don't have Pat Freiermuth. They don't have Deontay Johnson. They don't have Cam Hayward. They don't have DeMarvin Leal. Like, there's so much that's piling up right now for the Steelers team, and I know the Ravens have their warts as well. Humphrey questionable, Odell questionable, Stanley questionable, Moses doubtful, all that. I get that. But given what I saw last week and given what I have seen over the course of 4 games this season, it's really hard right now to think that the Steelers, as far as projectability is concerned, just are projected to win this game. I would project a 7-point game or less, but I project the Ravens come out on top. I think it's a defensive game. I think it's less than 30. I think this is that 5 yards in a cloud at us, AFC North ball, just like super gritty kind of football that we see on Sunday.
AG Shadow Man, Calvin Austin punt TD to win the game. You heard it here first, man. That's bold. That's a bold prediction. That's
maybe.
I like those. All right, time to give my pick. I think it's worth noting that Vegas does not think that this is going to be a 3-point game. Ravens and Steelers is usually, going through the history, especially recent history, it seems to be 3 points or less every single time they play. Vegas has the Ravens favored by 4. I think any kind of streak of 3-point games is broken on this one. I think the Steelers maybe show up better than they did against the Texans. Honestly, it's hard to imagine them showing it even worse than they did. I'm still not confident in this offense's ability to produce points. I'm going to say Ravens win this one 27-13.
Going 27. You're going for that over by yourself there.
I almost think, but I mean, it doesn't necessarily. Okay, it's a 2-touchdown game, but that second touchdown could come in a kind of similar fashion that it did, in the Texans game. 23-6 doesn't look nearly as bad as 30-6. That last, that late touchdown, something like that could happen. The Ravens are up, 20-13. It's a one score game, and then they pull away, get a late touchdown, and all of a sudden it's 2 scores. And
Jerry, this is how I feel about every Pitt game since week 2.
And this is the first time I'm picking the Steelers to lose this season. I've been 2-2 so far. I felt good about the team going into the 49ers game. Obviously, was smacked in the face on that. I still thought they would bounce back, beat the Browns. They did that. I thought they were going to Vegas and beat a better football team. They were that. I thought the same thing would happen last week. They proved me wrong. So right now, based off of 4 weeks of precedent, based off the way this Ravens team is playing, I just can't in my right mind choose the Steelers right now. They're a bad football team right
Jerry said it's really hard to watch games if you think they're going to lose. Again, that's college football in this town right now. Pro football in this town will take place Sunday, 1 p.m. at Acrisure Stadium. DK and I will be there for all of the fun and festivities associated with AFC North. If you will, Chris and I will be back Monday, per usual, 3 to 3:30-ish Eastern here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. DK and Ramon coming up in about 30 minutes. Ramon Foster show. No Ramon yesterday. We hope he's back today. Hope everything's well. And we will talk to you on Monday. He's Chris Halicke. I'm Corey Crisan. This has been the Southside Beat. Cheers, everybody.